It's all around us. Home, office, social gathering, environment, name it. The use of plastic for storage is supposed to make life easy and simple, but that notion is proving to be false after all.
Look at our street everywhere in Lagos now. It's been littered all around the ground with plastic. That of the pure water, that of whatever.
Tóyàn bá dénú kọ́tà lásìkò òjò, ó máa ga báyìí ní tí tó máa lùtè bámúbámú. Tóyàn bá dénú floor náà ní inú ọjà, ó máa kún ní bámúbámú.
80% of what is in our drainage system is these plastics.
If plastic is not well managed, it can cause environmental hazard.
It starts from the person that litters and throws something on the street. It gets into the drainages. From the drainages, it gets into the canals. From the canals, it finds its way to the waterways and eventually finds itself in the ocean.
Since past 2 decades, I would say there was a transformation whereby particularly the soft drink industry moved away from using glass in materials for their packaging, and they started using PET bottles. And then we have this new advent of a situation whereby we have a lot of pure water syndrome came into the country.
The world over, tons and tons of plastic waste are being generated daily, and it's becoming an epidemic not just to humans, but the environment. A study published by Science Advances estimates that 8.3 billion tons of plastic are in the world, of which 6.3 billion metric tons has become plastic waste. Of that, only 9% has been recycled.
Worldwide, we produce over 100 million tons of plastic per year. So if we were to scale that down to Nigeria, I think we produce at least 15,000 tons per day. And if you were to extrapolate that by 365, that's over 5 million tons of plastic we produce each year. We're not the biggest country in the world. We cannot afford to have that much plastic.
Plastic disposal, I would say it's basically an abuse of the material plastic. A lot of people now do use rather single-use plastic.
Three decades ago, plastic waste wasn't a major concern. But with the change in consumer lifestyle and habit, rise in income, industrial modernization, and population growth, the use of plastic has changed our world in bewildering ways.
Now it's clear to us that that use and throw away attitude is not sustainable, and therefore there's a need, really, for us to do something about it. So it has become a major issue all over the world.
Plastic material was first introduced to the world in 1866 in London by a Birmingham investor, Alexander Parkes. From then on, improvements were made to the material, and the first synthetic plastic, Bakelite, was invented in New York in 1907. By the 1930s, all sorts of plastics were being made, and decades after decades, the demands and uses of this material escalated. But the 1980s saw a phenomenal growth when single-use plastic materials became part of daily life. Plastic bags, bottles, and containers became commonplace, and this has come at an environmental cost.
There's a report that says that by the year 2050, there will be more plastics in the sea than fish, in the oceans than fish.
But plastics are found everywhere. We have microplastics, which are found in your toothpaste. Colgate uses plastic in their toothpaste and use it to brush your teeth, and you spit that into your sink, and that goes down and goes into our water systems. It's found in Lancome. A lot of face or beauty products have plastics within them. And a lot of plastics, microplastics, contain substances that have been linked to cancer, or they haven't been tested enough to actually see the impact they'll have on humans in the long term.
For aquatics, it kills them outrightly because they eat it because they think it's food, so it kills them. And when it gets into their digestive tract, because we eat from the ocean, it gets into ours as well. And there are a lot of toxins because plastic is basically petroleum, and there are a lot of toxins that are carcinogenic to us human beings. And as much as we think it's not affecting us, it is affecting us, because when we eat these things, when we eat these animals, when we ingest them, we have taken into our bloodstream something that even scientists are trying to find out the cause or the effects of these things or these toxins in us.
What's made the use of plastic a big concern? Plastic materials do not degrade. They remain sane for as long as they can, posing a grave threat not just to us, but our environment. Almost all consumer products are stored and sold in plastic containers. At every turn, you can't but notice the presence of plastics. But it is time to check the after usage of this environment-threatening material, littering our roads, clogging our drainages, and poisoning our waters.
If you're in a coastal community, you need to stop actually your littering habits and increase recycling in the areas that you actually live.
With a growing population put at 200 million, Nigeria is generating more waste daily than it can manage. But the responsibility of waste management should be a concern to all, especially brands offering consumer products in plastic containers.
We're perhaps one of the companies that produce most of the bottles you see in the water business. So we also take responsibility to ensure that the bottle that goes into trade are very good. So we don't take it lightly.
For instance, we have clear glass bottles, we have clear plastic bottles, and we have the green plastic bottles. The clear plastic ones are easily recyclable. The green ones are also recyclable, but for other purposes. And the important thing is for the general public to know that all these PET bottles, all these plastic bottles are recyclable. They should collect them. You have companies like Recycle Points. You also have WeCyclers. You also have Alchem. And they have hubs all around Lagos whereby you collect them. WeCyclers will actually come to your house to pick up. Recycle Points have hubs where you can take the plastic bottles you've picked up. And it's really for all our benefit to clean up the environment for absolutely all of us.
We have people who pick, we have people who aggregate, who collect in large quantities. We have those who, it's a whole value chain, those who crush like we do, and there are those who convert the crushed flakes to pellets. Whether they are dirty bottles like this, picked straight from the streets, or clean bottles like this, picked straight from source, event centers, homes and all that, they have equal amount of value for us. And having people process them, sort them, separate them is our way of creating jobs.
Beyond just putting the recycle label on products, major brands do not seem to be doing enough to sensitize the consumers and the public on proper plastic disposal or how to recycle used plastic containers.
But the thing about plastic is it doesn't go away. So if you don't recycle it, or if it doesn't get into a recycle plant, it gets to the landfill or it gets into the ocean. And both are actually very bad for the environment.
Everyone is responsible for plastic pollution in Nigeria. But when it comes to someone who can actually make a difference and make a very tangible change, I think those are the companies and people who are actually manufacturing, because they have a say in their supply chain. They have a say in what kind of plastics they choose to use. They have a say in what kind of products they choose to use in their stores.
An estimated 5 trillion plastic particles are floating at the ocean surface, most of them microplastic particles. The problem is even more glaring in Nigeria because of the indiscriminate disposal of plastic wastes in drains and drainages. What are the possible solutions? Some environmentalists have called for the total ban on the use of plastics, which has taken effect in countries like Kenya and Sao Tome. But for an industry that generates $600 billion, that may be impossible to do.
If every one of us, or even 50% of us, change that attitude or that habit of littering and consuming plastic as much as we do now, it will reduce it.
When you see waste, I see money. The value I place on one bottle is 50 kobo. I once asked someone, if you wanted 20,000, and I went to a bank and collected 20,000 in 50 kobo coins and 1 naira coins, and I littered them on the street from one side of town to another, would you pick? The person said, well, it's money, I would pick. There's value here. Before you throw away that next bottle, remember that may be 50 kobo in your hands. So the more 50 kobo you pick, the more you grow your pocket, you grow your money. And that's what we do.
Another solution some experts say is to find alternatives to plastics and raise the rate of recycling efforts, which at present is below 23% to 26%.
I must say this, that plastic packaging may be with us for a long time. But the thing is that we just have to keep renovating and improving on this plastic packaging.
Reduce, reuse, recycle, and refuse. If you reduce your plastic waste, there will be less plastic waste in the ocean. If you refuse your plastic waste, or even if you refuse plastic at all, you have already reduced it because there's no consumer for it. The more you recycle and the more you reuse, reduces the amount of plastic waste in the ocean.
If people have less access to plastics, it will reduce the amount of plastics we have available. That's one. So if you go to a supermarket and let's say if I went to a supermarket and I wanted to buy groceries, if the supermarket made me buy my plastics, that would deter me from using plastics. Or if they didn't even supply plastics, that would force me to bring my own bag, and I'd reuse that bag instead of buying new plastics all the time and just throwing it away carelessly.
We need to recycle. That is major. We really need to recycle. But as simple as it sounds, there is a lot of steps that we need to take in order to begin to do that recycling bit. First of all, we have to sort our waste at home. If we don't sort our waste at home, it is impossible to recycle. But that element is really not there yet. We don't have that infrastructure in place, and that is one. The other aspect is that there must be that policy that drives the companies that are producing products in plastic packages to have some kind of, extended responsibility for them to take back most of these things post-consumption.
If Kenya and Sao Tome can avoid plastic use, so can Nigeria if we are to avoid a looming disaster.
Yes, we can!